Hello, welcome to my coverage of the 2023 Silk Road Mountain Race. Now, I wasn't able to do daily coverage for this event because I was out there racing myself. So instead, I'm going to do a bit of a report after the race. It's finished a couple of weeks ago now. But I've got loads of video and I was obviously there on the ground. So hopefully I can bring a bit of insight and we'll follow the dots retrospectively and have a look and see how the race developed. So yeah, this is hopefully a new format for me. I've been doing the daily updates for most of the year. So I'm hoping that this short report format works really well. So open to feedback, let me know in the comments, and hopefully I'll be doing a lot more reports on various races to give an insight into the world of bikepacking and ultra races. So yeah, give us a subscribe if you want to see more of this. The plan is to, in the next couple of weeks, cover the Badlands, which is starting today. And also there's a couple of FKTs on the Tour Divide with JP Tavari and Lachlan Morton. So I'll do a bit of a roundup on those and see how they're getting on. But for now, we're talking Silk Road Mountain Race. And yeah, this is the tracker. It was on Map Progress. Started in Karakol in Kyrgyzstan. Let's head over to the Ride with GPS just to have a bit of a look at an overview of the route. And as you can see, it's defined by high altitude. So 10,000 feet here is about 3,000 meters. So you can see there's some pretty big chunks over 3,000 meters and plenty of passes up over that altitude as well. Brings its own challenges, obviously lack of oxygen being one of them, which I can certainly attest to being a factor on this race. Very little resupply, very remote at times, but quite simply stunning, as I think you'll probably see as we get into the report and see the video I have. So let's just break it down a little bit. So the first checkpoint is relatively close to the start, 146 miles away in Enelchek, which is it's an old abandoned, it's not quite abandoned, but it's certainly a very remote town. So let's break it down, do that first section and have a look at the race tracker and hit go. So it's going to be pretty tough to make too much out of the first the first part of the tracker until everyone spreads out a bit. But what I've done is I've highlighted the eventual top 10. One thing to bear in mind is that this doesn't show retrospectively the people who scratched. So I'm going to focus on the top 10 and the lead women. And as you can see, the first rider to the first checkpoint was Sebastian Broer. Now he's got some real pedigree in the world of cross-country racing. He was a pro for a while, won the European Marathon Championships, so not surprising. He covered that first part pretty fast. So the race itself started 9 a.m. in Karakol. We got a full-on police escort, and as you can see, everyone's very keen, and you can't really make too much of the first day because some people go out too hard. Always guaranteed. But you can see the kind of the race favourites are kind of there or thereabouts near the front, and we kind of basically there's a lot of road to start with, and then eventually onto this first pass, you can see you start to see the real beauty. This is Max Rice, who finished 11th in the end, and Manu Cadrus. So Manu is not going to show on the dots. Unfortunately, he had a crash and scratched. So yeah, we're not going to be able to see him on there. But yeah, we basically worked our way up this. Let me put you back on the screen. Up this really long valley, and basically, you're basically going up all day. So if I just move my face out of the way, you can see that the riders gradually kind of work their way up and then into Enelchek, and then we've got a really, really high pass afterwards. So Enelchek, as I've already said, is it's a weird old place, to be honest. It's an out and back. Let's go on Ride with GPS. You see it quite clearly here. So up over the big high pass, that's the video I just showed you, and then you drop down and straight back up again before this monster pass here. There's actually, if you look here, this is the race info provided by the organisers. So Nelson Trees organises this event, and also the Atlas Mountain Race, which I've covered before. And this is the kind of information you get. So these are shops. You can see there's not really much once you get out in the mountains, and there's also quite a few military checkpoints. So this is the border zone with China. It's not super close. We do get closer further on in the race, but I guess it's disputed territory, or not disputed, but there's not much up there. So this is these mountain ranges you can see here where my cursor is. They're quite inhospitable, so this is kind of the start of civilization, essentially. So yeah, lots of border checks. We had special permits and stuff organised by the race to get out there. So yeah, it's all very interesting and a pretty cool place to see. So we rolled into Enelchek, so I've got a little video here. It was getting dark by here. I was about an hour and a half, 2 hours after the leaders. I think I got there in 14th position. And you can kind of you start to get a feel for the, who's going to be up there in the race. But, it's early days, and, it's after the first day means nothing. And like I said, there's still this monstrous pass. So it's just under 4,000 meters, about 3.5, 3.6, coming in the dark. And, Kyrgyzstan is quite unpredictable. So as you could predict, there was a storm. So a storm came over on the first day. We'll run it a little bit further. So obviously, everyone was going back and forth. It's a bit of a mess looking at the tracker here. And then we had a bit of an early leader with Justinas Levajka. And the favourites started coming through. Jakub Silikon, he's won that race before. Jochen Boringer, he's done well at this. He's won a couple of the real climbing races. He's a real lightweight guy, really strong climber. Adrian Lichty and Sofin Sahili, he was involved in a crash very early. Basically, he hit a massive pothole when we were riding in a bunch at the start, hit the ground really hard. He's a defending champion, won it twice, and he was putting a lot of pressure on himself to win. But yeah, a real setback early on. He lost probably half an hour fixing his bike. He had a big cut on his arm, pretty beat up. When I saw him coming past me, he was, I don't know, I think he was feeling it. So yeah, Sofin chasing over the big high pass. And as you can see, they're kind of spread out. And this, I got there, I was halfway at the pass at midnight. A lot of these riders pushed through, and it was, there was a big storm up there, and things were getting pretty messy. So I decided to stop before heading over. A few riders did, a few riders didn't. But essentially the top 10 or so pushed on over the pass. So we got Seb Bruin here. Manu was there as well. And then Max Rice pushed over. Stephen Leherrick stopped near me. I stopped. I think James Hayden, again, he ended up scratching, so he's not going to show on this dot on the map. But he was behind as well. And then, woke up in the morning, and I obviously started going over the high part. I was trying to be sensible. It started raining, so I got in my bivvy, and in the morning, I kind of saw what had happened on the pass. And as you can see, the video quality isn't great because it was about -3, quite a lot of humidity, so it had frozen over the front. And as you can see, there's just snow. It was a little bit sticky, it wasn't too muddy. But I don't think I would have wanted to ride over there on the first night. But a lot of riders did push on, and headed down to the other side. And basically, you're dropping straight back down, almost to Karakol. I mean, this was 5 a.m. first light, pretty spectacular. My first real, wow moment of the race. The first day was spectacular, but it wasn't kind of out as well. But this was incredible. Nice long descent all the way down, and basically we were heading straight back down towards Karakol. So you can see from the loop here, basically go up to 3,500 meters. I think I slept at 3,100 meters on this pass up here somewhere, and then straight back down, skirt Karakol. And basically this is a warm up. This doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, and as you can see, we then really got stuck into the crux of it, climbing up to the Arabelle Plateau. And if you look at the resupply here, there are shops in Saru, shops in Naryn, and there was pretty much nothing in between on this super long section. So that was 263 miles to 430 miles. So, almost 200 miles, not far off. Pretty much over 2,500, 3,000 meters for good chunks of it, nearly 4,000 meters on this plateau up here, with no resupply. So that's what the Silk Road Mountain Race is really about. And this is the start was easy in the grand scheme of things, but this is the real test, and the race starting to develop. So as we can see, Justinas super strong, had a bit of a break. And there's people like Jochen up there, Sofin really closing down. As you can see, the the climbs start to spread things out a little bit. I'm up here a little bit further back with Seb Brewer. So a lot of the guys that went over the pass on that first morning, I ended up catching because they had to push over because the weather was so bad, and ended up sleeping quite a lot. So yeah, everything's spreading out, and in the women's race, you can just see Natalie Ballion and Peggy. They had a real tight race, and they were starting to kind of battle for that lead in the women's race. But up front, Justinas and Sofiane were starting to kind of pull away a little bit, and Adrian Lichty was up there in third place as well. So let's just have a little look. As you can see, we've got this long climb up here and onto this plateau before dropping down. This is the Arabelle Plateau. I think it's called the Arabelle Valley on the other side. It's a pretty spectacular place. So let's find a bit of video on that. So you start climbing up from Saru, and this is when it just starts getting really, really picture perfect. A long wide valley. I mean, that could just be a postcard. And you're climbing up here. I mean, I think I got there about midday at the start of the valley. And by the time I got to the very top, there's a pretty nasty hiker bike at the end of it, and it was sunset by the time I got up on the plateau. So you're climbing all the way up around these mountains in the background, and you just keep going up all day. And that's a bit of a thing with Kyrgyzstan. The mountains are just spectacular, and you can see here this is the hiker bike at the top. It's a case of almost 10 steps forward, stop for 30 seconds, catch your breath again, because you're pretty much 3,500 meters here. And this was catching me out. And when I got to the top of this, I was pretty done in. And then there's the plateau at the top. It's quite hard to navigate and getting quite dark. And I actually got lost a bit up there. It's quite hard to think when you're that high up. So yeah, this small section here, I think it's about 40 miles. You pretty much touch 4,000 meters before dropping down. So I got to the top of the plateau here at it's just about getting dark, so probably 7 or 8 p.m. And then I knew I had to push over it and drop down the other side just so I could sleep at lower altitudes. I think I ended up sleeping at 3,400 meters. But that felt pretty good after, being at nearly 4,000. I really was suffering up there. And then woke up the next morning, and absolutely beautiful valley. I think it's the Arabelle Valley, as I already said. And you're just dropping down, and wild horses up there, and it's just another planet. It's truly out of this world. You're at 2,500 meters here. That seems to be like the level for a while. Yeah, the mountains are just absolutely endless and pretty spectacular. So yeah, Justinas and Sofiane were at the head of affairs here. You can see Adrian Lichty, he's in third. Joachim's up there as well. Lucas Klamet is up there. Manu was also up here as well. Obviously, his dot's not showing because he did have that accident. Stephen Leharic's up there. Sebra, I'm in there as well. And James Hayden is probably in between me and Max Rice here at this moment. And you can see Peggy and Natalie. They're really not very far behind at all. So yeah, they're just in the background there. Doing a really strong ride in the women's race. So the next, I guess the first real town on the route is Naryn. So Justinas was the first into Naryn, and as you can see, not had much resupply for a while. Also known as Scratch City, there's a hotel there, there's restaurants there. It's kind of easy. If you look at the overall map, it's kind of central. You can get back to Bishkek. You can get out of the wilderness there, and quite a lot of people do scratch or certainly make new plans there. But it's kind of one of those towns, if you're racing, you need to get through it relatively quick. Or if you're there late at night, make the most of the hotel, have a big meal and get out of there. So Justinas was first in there, Sofiane a little bit further behind. And you can see there's a real nice long descent down into Naryn. In theory, it's a nice long descent, but it was actually pretty horrendous headwind. It just sucked. It really did suck. You're going like 6-7 miles an hour downhill. Rough gravel, washboard roads. It wasn't particularly pleasant. So I got there. I caught up with Stephen Leharic and Seb Brewer. While I was in there, then Justinas was up on the next high plateau, getting towards CP2 in Kelsu. So again, the battle's developing here. Justina's leading, Sophie in there, Jakob again, previous winner up there. Manu would have been just in between there. Lucas is up there, Jochen, and then the little group that I'm in, Seb Brewer, myself, James Hayden, a little bit behind, and we're just kind of at the bottom of the climb while they're going to the top. In the women's race, Natalie and Peggy, they're basically locked together. I mean, there's about 10k between them, which is nothing in the grand scheme of things. And Elena was in third at this point, not too much further back, but the race was kind of going away from her. So Natalie and Peggy were really kind of doing a fantastic ride. So yeah, that climb up out of Naryn, that's where I caught Stephen. Well, actually, I think he stopped for longer in Naryn. I got a kebab actually, which is risky in Kyrgyzstan. But yeah, this is the climb up and out. It's kind of rolling mountains. You can maybe just see Stephen in the far distance there. This was one of the better dirt roads, relatively smooth. But then later that evening, just doing the sports, 4-wheel drives, as you can see, driving up and down massive clouds of dust. So yeah, it can get pretty dirty, pretty rough, just generally slow going. But this is the terrain is just spectacular. You can see those mountains in the background. That's pretty much where we ended up going as we climbed up towards the second checkpoint. So yeah, once you get up there's a military checkpoint. I'll just show you the military checkpoint on Rub GPS. Where are we? Up here. So it doesn't actually show on this map, but you can see you're kind of climbing up this long pass. I actually slept here, and I was riding with Stephen out of this small town here on this section of, well, it's shown as tarmac on Rub GPS, but I can assure you it's most definitely really rough, crappy road. Where's my screen gone? There we go. So yeah, this section here is really rough, crappy road. Actually, similar to my little background there. And then you're up on this, and again another 3,000 meter plateau as you get to Kelsu, which is the checkpoint and the yurt camp. There is a little bit of a loop here, so as you can see up and around. So this is the old Soviet road, bit of a fixture of the Silk Road mountain race, and as you can see, it is ridiculously steep and a bit of a hiker bike. So Justinus, he was the first to get up there, and these guys got there at night. Justinus decided not to sleep, which was probably an error, and the front runners all kind of like grouped together. I see Justinus carried on, but then ended up sleeping anyway, and it was absolutely freezing up there, really cold, -5, -6. So Justinus ended up sleeping outside, which wasn't really ideal. I rocked up in the morning, probably about midday. Stephen got ahead of me, and we actually had this nice little encounter on the way to the checkpoint.
Yo, how's it going?
So he thought he was chasing me, but I knew he was ahead.
Good. I tried to catch you since.
So yeah, we had a little chat for a couple of minutes. You can see the yurt camp in the background. Behind these mountains is China.
I slept. I didn't cross the pass last night.
And yeah, basically Stephen realised he'd been chasing a ghost. He was racing really hard trying to catch me, but I was actually behind him, and I kind of knew that. And you can see just on the dots here. Let's zoom in a little bit. You can see that. So that we're kind of in the group 2. These guys are probably pushing up front quite hard. Sofian ends up getting the lead as Justinus sleeps. Me and Stephen having a bit of a leapfrog there. So we're all on this loop together, but you can't see anyone. It feels pretty remote out there. And then we've got this really long slog out to the Chinese border. So you can see the Chinese border just here on the map. But this section here, where you see where Joachim is, Jakob, and Lucas, just starting as me and Stephen are doing the loop up the old Soviet road, super remote, and kind of, I don't know. It's just it's tough. It's really tough. So this is what it looks like. You're just riding along rough roads, super windy, just nothing going on really, and you can hear the wind whistling through the spokes, and it's like that for hours. Basically, if there's any kind of false flat plateau, it's pretty much a headwind, so it's a real drag. I mean, it looks beautiful at sunset, but the novelty does wear off when you're riding 6 hours. It pretty much a straight line with some big river crossings as well. It's pretty wild out there. And then you get to the Chinese border, which is basically a truck stop. Resupply was tricky. There is a resupply up there. As you can see on the race map, it says there's a shop in Turugat, but I didn't see the shop. I ended up eating in a little truck stop, got some noodle soup. The temperature dropped so fast. You're at 3,000 meters here. So it was kind of like 10 or 12 degrees during the day with wind chill. But as soon as that sun went down and we approached this lake, obviously lakes do kind of draw the temperature out. As soon as I got there, we can see the control car one at the moment. The temperature just dropped to -5 almost instantly. Proper cold. But I managed to get a meal. Ended up camping further along. So as you can see, Justinas and Sofia neck and neck along the Chinese highway. Jakob in third. Seb and Adrian together. Seb's super fast, but he was sleeping a lot. And Jochen, he's there as well. Probably suffered a little bit on the flatter stuff. And then you got Lucas there, Stephen Leherick, and then I'm a little bit further back. James Hayden at this point would have been probably about 10-15k behind me. Probably an hour and a half on the road, so probably around the 900k mark. And Manu Katrus would have been between Adrian and Jochen. Again, they're not shown, as I already said. And Natalie and Peggy. Natalie got to the second checkpoint first. Peggy a little bit further behind. But yeah, again, another good little race there between them in the women's race. So there's this long Chinese highway. You can see I speed up quite substantially there. The average speed really does go up. And yeah, basically the reason for that is tarmac and actually a tailwind. So I managed to ride a little bit there. Woke up, so I slept 6 hours, slowed me down. James Hayden actually called me. So the next day I was then kind of riding the same as James Hayden. And yeah, that tarmac was very welcome as you sort of head back round here. And then you can see there's quite a big like turn off, and there's two passes, the Kulak Pass and Mels Pass, before Beitov, which is the next kind of big resupply. So yeah, heading to Beitov. Let's fast forward a little bit on the tracker, see how it went. So Justinas got through Beitov first, and Sofin's still on his hot on his tail, and Jakob. So the top three are really pushing out there. Adrian in fourth with Seb behind, and then the little group here, Lucas, Stephen, Jochen, Manu's still in there. Although I think this is where Manu scratched. He had a city crash somewhere around here. I think it was on one of these passes. So Manu has essentially crashed really hard and then had to ride back to Naryn over here. So I don't know if he broke his ribs, but he certainly injured himself. A slow speed topple, I think it was, and fell straight on a rock. So unfortunately, I mean, you always know at this stage of the race, someone in the top 10 is going to pull out. Unfortunately, it was Manu. And then myself and James, we were pretty much neck and neck here. That's James Hayden. As we headed into these two climbs. So let's find those climbs now. Actually, it's the descent. Beitov. See that tiny little green patch in the distance? That's Beitov. It's probably 10-15 miles away, almost an hour ride. Just the scale of this country. So essentially, you can see the next day riding laid out. This is what it's beautiful. So yeah, it's incredible. So that is the descent down to Beitov. So that's going down this big descent here for the resupply. And let's just roll it forward a little bit further. So as I was getting down there, the others are obviously heading off onto the washboard of hell. So yeah, this will be the morning. And Justinas way ahead. Sofin chasing. Jakob managed to stay in Beitov. Lucas gets there early in the morning for a resupply. Adrian meets him there. Jochen, Stephen, and then myself. And it's worth noting James is actually ahead of me at this point. He's probably around where control car 1 is. And Justinas is like a pass ahead. I mean, this pass, it's more of a drag than anything. It's not massive. Certainly in comparison to the rest of it. before we head down to Kazan. So yeah, that section out of Beitov, it's rough, real rough, and it's just I don't know, just going on further. Of course, there's a headwind. You can see from the flag here. This was James Hayden ahead of me. We were essentially leapfrogging. We were probably within sight most of the day. You know, he'd get ahead of me for a bit, and then he'd stop for a wheel, fill up some more, try and get ahead again. And we just kept doing that all day until later in the day, when we hit the big pass, and then Seb Roa, he was behind us. I think he must have stopped in Beitov. And yeah, so we ended up looping together quite a lot. So the next morning, a load of us came together actually. So Jochen, Seb, a load of people stopped in Beitov. And this is where I managed to close up quite a bit of time. And you're talking 4 days in now, so things do start to kind of sort themselves out. So you can see we're riding here together in the evening over the big pass. So at one point I saw Jochen, I saw Seb, and I think I could see the lights of Lucas. I decided to sleep before Kazan. Everyone else slept in town, and then the next morning I ended up catching them all again. So yeah, I was kind of slow and steady, but ended up catching people. And at this point, Justinus is starting having issues. He was having some real tough breathing issues, and Sofian ended up getting ahead of him. So there's two big passes here, as you can see. And Sofian, Jakub, and Justinus were basically kind of made the podium their own at this point. Sofian was making his push, heading up to Songkul, which is CP3. Justinus was starting to get probably symptoms of pneumonia. He is a nurse. He kind of knows what to do with himself, and I think he realised he needed to back it off a little bit. So we'll see him slow down a little bit. I ended up, as I say, catching up with everyone again. So I caught Seb in the morning. Basically, Seb is way stronger than me. I catch him and just ride away again. And normally the next morning, I catch him up again. So by the end of it, it's quite nice. We had a chat every morning. And, you develop quite a bond with your fellow riders when you're in these races. So it was quite nice to kind of see these people. And I also caught Lucas for the first time too. So I caught him on, you can see these big climbs here. Where are we? Beitov, Kazan. And then there's two big climbs in this section. They're absolutely spectacular. Well, they look quite small actually in the grand scheme of things, but I can assure you they're big enough when you're riding up them. So yeah, up the two climbs, and
right, I'm filming you now.
Inside. Again, women's just staying. You just descend. Quite nice. This is quite a good road. And it's just like riding down. You can see the distance there. That's where we're going. You can see the road. Yeah, it's just
it's sketchy.
It's just hard to get your head around without being there. So yeah, by this point the race is starting to spread out a little bit. So myself and Lucas are together, and as usual, everything kind of concertinas at the checkpoint. Sofian got there first, had a little. He didn't actually stop. Justinus had a bit more of a stop. And Jakub closed up quite a lot. And then you can see this group here. By this point, I think Adrian had been suffering with illness, so he stopped for a while. Seb Brewer stopped there. Jochen stopped there. Lucas stopped there. James Hayden, also not on the dots, stopped there. And then little old me just cruised up again and caught everyone up again. So myself and Lucas actually ended up sharing a yurt together. And set off probably about an hour behind the other guys in the morning. And yeah, it's just beautiful. Songkul, this was the one. We stayed the other side of this lake. This is about 3,000 meters, another plateau. This is what Dawn looks like out there. This was quite a nice road. I was suffering. I think I passed some vision outside the road. Myself and Luke were sitting up. I left a bit before him, but at this stage of the race, quite often tracking together but everyone is totally ruined by this point. So yeah, so as you can see, the race has closed up. The leaders here are already heading up onto Kegeti Pass. So Kegeti Pass is a big pass. We'll cover that in a minute, but Sofian and Jakob really started making a gap on Justinus. Justinus, I say, was ill. Adrian also up there, but he's ill. So then Joachim, myself, Seb, Steven Leheric's up there as well. And I think James might have scratched around this time, maybe just after Kegeti. He was suffering with bronchitis and a chest infection, so he scratched really near the end. So yeah, it's one of those races that just grinds you down slowly. Vlad, sorry Vlad, I'm just going to destroy your surname. Podofedov. So he's a local rider. He did a really strong ride. He's up there with Max Rice, and then Natalie and Peggy still battling out. They're taking chunks out of each other in this race. It's really good to see such strength and depth in the women's field now, and they're pushing the top 10 overall as well. So yeah, really cool to see. Let's have a little bit of a look at video. Let's see what there is. Heading. Well, we got some more hiker bike in the morning. As I said, this is Lucas. We caught up with each other. So this is the climb before you drop into the valley, which leads to Kegeti. Kegeti is one of the really famous
silly
passes.
little things can happen, can't they?
And again, it's a real tough hiker bike on top there. We ended up together again on a hiker bike. It seems to be a thing. We close up on the hiker bike and then sort of split apart as you ride different speeds and valleys and descents. So that's Lucas heading up Kegeti, and then we crested the top together. I got ahead again. And yeah, we were lucky with the weather. A few people got stuck in a hailstorm. I think Joachim was just behind us at this point, and he got really smashed with hail. But we managed to get over the top. We're talking nearly 4,000 metres, about 3,800 metres here. You can see the rain and the hail started. We managed to drop down quite low. And you're descending for the best part of an hour down this descent. It's pretty cool. So yeah, we luckily dropped out into the sun and get to lower altitude to the bottom. So dodged a bullet on that one, but you know it's mad on the Silk Road. The weather can just change just like that. And as you can see, this is a big long descent, and you're getting quite low again now. Let's zoom out, and you get to Kegeti, the town of Kegeti. You can see the little information point there. A big long descent. At Kegeti, there's a nice shop there. You can get a real good resupply, and then you're actually at quite low elevations for a while. And you've got these bonus climbs in here. Bonus climbs, so-called by Nelson. Basically, he means hiker bike. A kick in the teeth right at the end of the race, before the last push. So by this point, as myself and Lucas are on Kegeti, the riders in the lead are their best part 24 hours ahead now. So they're really pushing through the bonus climbs. They would have had these in daylight. And then they would have been heading in towards the finish. By this point, Adrian's really slowing down. He's had some issues with his health. I think he was just sick. So he stopped in Kegeti. Joachim had a really hard crash on the descent of Kegeti, so he really slowed down as well. And up front, Sofian and Jakob are really tearing chunks out of each other into the final valley. This final valley is incredible. Justinus has really slowed down as well because of his illness, but he's looking solid enough in third place. Steven Leherick pushing in fourth. So yeah, let's focus on the head of affairs at the moment. So let me find some more video just to kind of give it a bit of sort of depth. So this was the bonus climbs. I caught Seb again as usual, and he just disappeared up the road. Lucas a little bit further ahead of me. So this was 5 a.m. and then you get these really nice fast descents. Seb actually crashed on the street. So you can see a nice descent before the final push up to the finish. So this long valley here, I don't actually have any video of it, but you can see a nice long drag, and this took most of the day. So I got down here to this junction about 10 a.m. and I got to the foot of the final pass at sunset, so probably 8 p.m. At this point, Sofian and Jakob, they're taking, they're really fighting for the win. Sofian got to the final pass first, which is essentially a 4-hour hiker bike. So he could actually see Jakob's light. He was probably an hour back. And then you get to the top, and it's just one long descent down to the finish. And as you can see, Sofian took victory. His third win in a row. Jakob came in about an hour later. And then the next morning, Justinus really slowed down with his illness, but he made it over, looked after himself just about, and came in third position. Stephen Leherick, he did a good solid ride, really consistent, really efficient with his sleep. He dropped down into fourth position. If I actually bring out the results at the side here, you can see a bit more about what went on there when it loads up. Seb Brewer and Lucas, they ended up crossing that final pass together. I was a little bit further back, just ended up suffering a bit in the heat. So Seb and Lucas, they shared a joint fifth position. I came in sixth. So I finished about 2 hours behind Seb and Lucas. Just didn't have the legs on the last day. Adrian Lichty, he was sick, but he held it together. He came in eighth position. Jochen, he really smashed himself up, but managed to get a trip to hospital, clean his wounds up. He came in ninth. And then Vlad, the local guy, in 10th. And Max Rice in 11th. And then we just had this amazing battle between Natalie and Markita, or Peggy. So Natalie was ahead into this final valley. But then she had some bike issues on the final climb. And actually Peggy helped her fix her bike. So she great sportsmanship, or should I say sportswomanship? Is that the phrase? Peggy basically said she didn't want to take advantage of a mechanical issue for Natalie. So they basically just walked up the final hiker bike together and rolled down, and they finished together, joint first women. I think they were 14th overall. Just goes to show again, how strong the female riders are. And as you can see, Yelena, she was third. She finished the next day. So that was a Silk Road mountain race. Let me press the right button. So that was the Silk Road mountain race. Justinas in third position. Jakob was in second, and then Sofian took his third win in a row. Having now ridden the race, I've just got so much more respect. Not that I didn't have any before, but so much respect for Sofian. And then Peggy and Natalie shared the win in the women's race. So that was the 2023 Silk Road mountain race. I hope you liked it. It's been a bit of a long video. Let me know if you like this format, and see you again for the next one.